It's Friday, everyone. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Benit Rach here in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Let's get to your top stories right now. While drivers in the valley, a heads up to you, a stretch of Highway 1 is down to single lane traffic due to a fiery two-vehicle crash. It happened near the Yale Road West exit. Now, police say a small car and a full-sized van collided. The van then caught fire. Officers say there were injuries, but they haven't yet told us how severe they are. So eastbound lanes of the highway are now closed from number 3 road in Abbotsford, and westbound lanes are now down to a single lane traffic. Police say they don't know what caused this crash, and they are asking drivers to get updates on Drive BC. And look out for another fall storm today. So Environment Canada says expect up to 110 km/h winds in southwestern BC today. The west coast of Vancouver Island will get the strongest gusts. There are also snowfall warnings for other places. So the Coquihalla will get heavy snow starting today between 10 to 15 centimeters, with the Okanagan Connector also getting up to 10 centimeters of snow until tomorrow. Highway 3 from the Paulson Summit to the Kootenay Pass could get between 30 to 40 centimeters of snow by Sunday, so watch out for that. And in Kamloops, RCMP are searching for 3 suspects involved with a stolen vehicle early this morning. So police tried to pull over a truck and a trailer stolen from Williams Lake in Quesnel around 4:40 a.m. The driver wouldn't stop and eventually drove onto the Yellowhead Highway and hit a semi-truck. The vehicle was then driven back into Kamloops, where the trailer hit several parked cars and came unattached. The truck was eventually found abandoned, with 3 people who were seen running away through backyards in downtown Kamloops. Guns were also found inside the truck, with police hoping someone has security footage that might identify these suspects. Meanwhile, police in central BC say no criminal charges will be laid in a school bus crash where more than 30 people were hurt and a pedestrian was killed in June near Lake Lahash, calling it a tragic accident. So the school bus with elementary students ran off Highway 97 with the school bus driver suffered a medical event. Then a Good Samaritan, a pedestrian in his 70s, stopped to help the victims and was struck and killed by an SUV. Now, police say there were no signs of impairment, of carelessness, speeding, or distraction from the driver of the SUV, saying that the driver could not see the aftermath of this bus collision because there was a bend in the highway. And a 60-year-old school bus driver is still recovering from serious injuries. She will also not be charged with any offenses. And it'll be a busy weekend for skiers and snowboarders after a dump of 100 centimeters of snow. Whistler Blackcomb just opened its doors just yesterday, and Cypress and Big White skiers can also start hitting the slopes today. And yeah, people are ready to make the most of it.
The long-timers say that this is like the classic good start of a good winter season, and people are very excited. Well, last year was definitely a big challenge with the weather. We had kind of everything from rain to no snow and warm weather, and yeah, just very challenging winter. So I think that definitely also builds up the hype for this one.
Grouse Mountains opens tomorrow, and so will Sun Peaks near Kamloops. And those are your top stories right now. I'm Benit Rach. Stay right here. BC Today is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, more strong winds, rain, and mountain snow all coming to BC. Now, this next storm won't be as intense as the bomb cyclone earlier this week, but it will bring those strong winds and more possible power outages. Tens of thousands of homes have already been hit this week with outages. We'll get details on the storm from Darius Madavi, and we are taking your calls. Have you been hit with a long power outage, and how do you think we can prepare? Plus, Brian Minter takes your gardening questions in half an hour. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. And we are taking your calls up first. Have you been hit with a power outage this week? How have you managed? We know a lot of people on Vancouver Island have been dealing with days-long power outages. So let us know how you're managing. And how do you think we can prepare for longer, lengthy power outages? You can share your tips with us as well. Our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca as well. A new storm is expected this afternoon, bringing winds up to 110 kilometers per hour. Environment Canada has issued wind warnings and special weather statements across Vancouver Island and the coast. Now, it won't be as intense as Tuesday's storm, but the high winds may bring down more trees and cause more power outages and problems for current outages as well. CBC's climate and science specialist Darius Madavi joins me now. Hi, Darius.
Hello.
Okay, what do we need to know about this incoming storm?
Right. So the last one that moved in, we were calling it a bomb cyclone, and the term was very, very, I think, well used in that case. I mean, it strengthened so quickly, double the speed at which it would need to be considered a bomb cyclone. Mm-hmm. So the term was really apt and really captured the speed the storm strengthened, how low it got, how low that pressure got, how intense it was. This storm that's coming in is also a rapidly intensifying low pressure system. It does seem like it will meet the criteria to be considered a bomb cyclone, but I'm a little bit more hesitant to use the term this time because it is a little bit more like a more typical BC storm. It'll still be intense, but it's something more similar to what we might see in a typical year. So you may see the term bomb cyclone thrown around, but I'm not going to use it quite as widely because I don't think it's as apt.
All those connotations that come with bomb cyclone. Now, there is a difference in terms of how much farther it will get, right? Inland?
Yes, that's right. So the last one, we got very, very lucky that it stayed offshore. This one, the track is still a little bit uncertain, but we're getting a better picture. It's pretty clear now. It will come closer to shore, still not looking like it's going to move over Vancouver Island, but come closer. So it's less intense, but it will be closer, which means we will still see very high wind gusts in many areas. I think just sort of to give a rundown of where we can expect to see the highest wind gusts, there've been wind warnings issued pretty much up and down the coast. Most of Vancouver Island and the coast are under wind warnings. We're talking on the north coast, 30 gusting 60, with the inlets seeing gusts up to 90 kilometers per hour. Central coast, 50 gusting 70, with the inlets getting up to 90 kilometers per hour. On the island, the North Island, 30 kilometer per hour winds, gusting 50, and the west coast of the island probably going to see the strongest winds, 70 gusting up to 90 or 100 kilometers per hour. The highest gust we see in this particular storm will probably land about 110 to 120 kilometers per hour and likely recorded on the west coast there. Inland Vancouver Island, 30 gusting 60. East coast of the island, 60 gusting 80. South Island, 50 gusting 80. And sort of to give you an idea of where we can expect to see the most widespread power outages, west coast of the island, especially coastal areas, are the most likely to see those outages. The North Island has a slight risk, but not too much, especially Port Hardy, pretty sheltered from those winds. It was unusual when we saw really high winds there last week, or earlier this week, sorry. And east coast of the island, South Island, I'd say a mid-moderate risk of power outages there as well. On the lower mainland, winds shouldn't be gusting too high unless you're on the more southern parts of Metro Vancouver, which typically get less rain, more wind. They're 60 gusting 70, maybe 80. The rest of Metro Vancouver really 40 gusting 60. Same in Abbotsford, in parts of the Fraser Valley. Probably going to see those winds calm as you go further east. And here I'd say again, Delta, probably going to see the highest risk of power outages, but it's still just moderate risk and low risk, but still very possible across the south coast. Metro Vancouver could see more outages today as well.
Okay, and I am looking at the outage map on BC Hydro right now, and it looks like it is the east coast of Vancouver Island right now that is still hit with current outages. So interesting to see that it'll be the west coast for this weekend.
Yes.
Should be looking out.
East coast of the island, though, especially Campbell River down to about Qualicum Beach, still has a fair risk of seeing more power outages. So the fact that this is really coming on the back of the last storm is part of what's stressful. I think the last number I saw was 15,000 people still without power. This is really just going to hamper more cleanup efforts, probably cause more travel disruptions, more outages, and just further stretch BC Hydro crews that are really just trying to get on the ground. And I've been calling this storm sort of the baby of the last one. We've got a lot of weather happening on the west coast. To the south of us, hitting California right now, there's an atmospheric river, a pretty strong one that's been going on all week since the bomb cyclone hit us here on Tuesday. We've got that bomb cyclone that hit us on Tuesday still spinning off the coast, moving further away, but sort of interacting with this one. And that bomb cyclone interacting with the atmospheric river sort of gave birth to this smaller system that's hitting us now. And all of those things together are interacting and making it difficult to give a really accurate forecast even a few days out. So if you are looking at your weather app and you're seeing the forecast change a lot over the next day or two, don't be surprised. That is what we're expecting. It's just things are very up in the air right now.
Still up in the air, and we're very thankful that you are watching it for us. Dars Madavi, CBC's climate and science specialist. And a reminder for you, for the latest vital information, you can consider visiting CBC Lite. It is a low bandwidth version of our CBC website. So it's perfect for when you're short on power or if you need to preserve data. You can go again to cbc.ca/lite. That is LITE. And we are taking your calls, asking you, how have you managed in a power outage this week? If you have any tips as well, you can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. In fact, we're joined now by Brian McGibney, who is camping in Tofino right now. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Michelle. Can you hear me?
I sure can. And I know you're joining us over the phone because you were worried about what that Wi-Fi was going to be like.
I was going to set something up outside, and then all of a sudden the heavens open, so I don't think my laptop would like that too much.
No, absolutely. Can you tell us about your experience so far?
We came out here early last week, and we had already heard that something was going to be coming. And I use the Windy app a lot because I'm kind of an amateur weather geek, and I could see the size of this system. I mean, it was all the way from Northern California to Southern Alaska. And the thing I think that made it probably a bit of a challenge for everybody is that the winds don't normally blow in that direction. So when I was talking to the hydro guys and a lot of the locals here, they say, yeah, the trees are used to getting the winds coming off the water, but when they come from the other side, that tends to expose weaknesses. And yesterday we drove by the crew that was getting all the wires back up right where the Tofino Junction is, where the Highway 4 comes out. And there was probably 10 to 12 of the 5-ton trucks and another half a dozen pickups, and looked to be about 30 guys working on it. So we did finally get our power on 52 hours later, around 8 o'clock last night.
What was it like for you being without power for 52 hours?
Well, we were prepared. We had candles. We had extra propane. The one thing we didn't do, which we almost always do, is drag our 3,500 watt generator in our truck. But we thought, oh no, it's a civilization. We don't need to worry. And of course, my wife
one time
we're cursing not having that generator because, you know, we had, like I say, we got propane, and we used the vehicles to recharge the house batteries to keep some basic electrics running. But
good stuff.
It gets pretty damp in there after a while with just running propane.
Any tips you can share with us then, Brian?
Well, have extra candles, have extra propane. Make sure you've got one or two different ways of doing things, of doing either your lighting or you're cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Have your food. Take a look around and make sure if there's any trees that look suspect that might go. I mean, where we're staying at Surf Grove, I was actually talking to the manager, Brandon, and they just had a tree auditor come through a few weeks ago, and they took out anything that looked at all suspect. So there was actually no damage in the campground.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? And can you describe for me just the kinds of winds that you've seen then?
Well, put it this way. I mean, we're in a fairly sheltered area of the campground, and the trailer was shaking early in the morning. I originally had texted in on Stephen Quinn's program the first morning it happened. And then the other thing that was really unusual, again, according to a lot of the local folks I was talking to, is the amount of thunder and lightning. It just went on and on and on. And there was one strike where it was flash, and less than 2 seconds there was the thunder. So that would have been a third of a mile away.
And you're still sticking around, are you?
Yeah, we love coming out here this time of year. I mean, my wife and I both live in East Vancouver. We've got our daughter traveling with us, but we'd like to come out here and just chill for. In the case of my wife, I think she's staying for a whole month. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. I've got some things to do in Vancouver, but it is a magical place, and it's humbling. And quite frankly, no offense to people that make TV, but nothing on TV beats sitting watching the waves come in. It's just absolutely mesmerizing.
Well, you stay safe, okay? And it is a magical place that you're in right now. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian.
Thank you, Michelle.
You take care.
Take care.
That's Brian McGibney, who is staying in Tofino at the moment, and we are expecting quite strong winds over on the west coast of the island, right, Darius?
That's right, gusting up to 90, 100 kilometers per hour, and those should be picking up soon. Yesterday it was looking like they should start in the morning. Now it's shifted back a little bit. They should be picking up in the next couple hours and then remaining high through the evening, pretty much across the island. But the west coast island probably seeing those into the overnight hours as well. Right now, the strongest winds we're seeing are in Howe Sound, gusting up to 90, 100 kilometers per hour. Like we heard, great point. Usually winds, our prevailing winds come from the west. These winds are outflow winds. They're blowing from the south or the east, most places the southeast. But the north coast, central coast, those winds are mostly blowing from the northeast. And right now, the outflow winds coming from Howe Sound are blowing from the north as well. So they're seeing the strongest winds right now just because of the topography of the area.
And we're hearing, the Gulf Islands have been hit. Let's go to Linda, who's joining us from Gabriola Island. Hi, Linda.
Hi there.
Hi, and how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Still no power, though.
Uh-huh. How long has it been for you?
68 hours, I think.
68 hours.
Yes. It went out at 6 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell me about that. How are you managing?
Well, we're managing fine here. We have power outages on the islands a lot. So we ourselves have a generator, propane generator. We have a wood stove for heat. We have a propane cook stove. So we manage. But the biggest inconvenience for people on the islands is that our well pumps are all electric. So we don't have any water as well when the power goes out.
Uh-huh. Okay, so do you have water stored then in your emergency kit?
Well, we have, most people here have rain barrels.
Yeah.
They make sure they have their bathtubs filled up and things like that when there's news of of windstorm coming.
Yeah. Your protocol comes into play, hey?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The big problem we've had here too, though, is that the data, we haven't been able to connect with our cell phones, and our landlines went down sporadically as well. So for part of the time, we were completely cut off. And some people on the island, there's so many trees down that they're not able to get their cars out because there might be a tree blocking one end of the road and one blocking the other end of the road, so they can't even get their vehicles out.
That's something I've certainly heard in terms of the effect of the trees being downed is the impact on travel and just ways of getting around, which also impacts emergency crews and hydro crews trying to get to those power lines.
Right, exactly.
How are you planning or managing to prepare for the storm that's coming now, Linda?
Well, we're hopeful that the power will come up again before it goes down again. And
Oh, dear.
some people are saying all the trees came down in the last storm, so maybe it won't be as bad. And as your weather person said, it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as Tuesday night, but we'll just deal with it if it happens. Yeah.
Do you have a good community to rely on?
Yes, we do. And we've gone around and checked on our neighbors, and I think everyone is doing that. People are, if they can get onto Facebook, people are posting and asking, if they have elderly people on the island, then people will go in and check on them and give an update on their status. Nobody's been injured or anything, but there are a number of houses that have sustained damage when the trees came down. And this was one of the first windstorms where I actually thought, I think I should move into the center of the house and sleep there rather than, because if the trees are so huge here.
Yeah.
If they come down on your house, there's potential for serious damage.
Absolutely. Yes. You take care and go where you need to be safe. Okay. Linda, I hope that comes back on, that power for you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All the best to everyone on Gabriola. And some tips now as well from Prepared BC. When it comes to power outages, you can inspect your chimney or your flue just to help prevent structural fires. Make sure that they are properly vented. Have that battery-operated radio. Stow flashlights with extra batteries. And make sure you have an adequate supply of food and water in your emergency kit. Put together an emergency plan and an emergency kit as well. As for food, right. So given that, 68 hours, the food in your fridge is usually safe to consume if power is out for less than 4 hours. That's food in your fridge. In the freezer, it's usually safe for 24 to 48 hours. And do keep those doors to your fridge and freezer closed so that the cold air is kept in. So that is from Prepared BC. We're taking your calls, asking you how you are managing in these power outages. I'm joined by CBC's climate and science specialist, Darius Madavi. Rudy is joining us from the News Bay. And Rudy, I just asked, I was asking Linda about community. You are actually the chair of the Northwest Nanoose Residents Association.
That's correct.
What is it like for your members right now?
I think everybody is pretty well situated. We got our power back yesterday morning about 5 o'clock for the majority of us early in the morning. There's still some houses without power because there's a service pole that is down, and I think it's being replaced as we speak. There were some other houses in the area that had more. They're on acreages closer to Parksville, and they had their power out until, I'm going to say, about 8 o'clock or so last night, because they had a number of big trees that actually took the lines right out of the poles themselves. But the crews have been great. The biggest concern, I think, for most people, unless they've got damage, is their food, as you had mentioned, because the refrigerators don't last that long. The freezers are good for about 48 hours typically. So we actually we used our portable generator yesterday to top all of that up, but we moved it around to a neighbor and then to another friend's place in order to top up their freezers and hopefully preserve the supplies that were on hand.
Well, it sure helps to be a close-knit community in these times, eh?
Yes, and we're very fortunate where we live. I mean, lots of people walk and bike in the area, so just about everybody knows everybody, and the word spreads very quickly if there's somebody really in dire need. We also have an emergency preparedness group on the street, so we've been kind of preaching the preparedness aspect for a number of years.
Rudy, all the best to you. Anything else you want to share with your members or anyone at New News Bay?
Well, a huge shout out to the crews that are putting everything back.
Sure thing.
Working 24 hours a day. The News Place, which is a community center, yesterday got used as a bit of a warming center because they realized that the manufactured home park across the street, they didn't have any power and they don't have the backup supplies. So they came to the hall and were graciously given warmth and a place to sit, as well as volunteers started putting meals together for them. So it's that type of community to put it all back together and make us get through it. And I think as mentioned, it's critical for everybody to reestablish, repower back up, and charge up all those batteries, etc., and be ready in case it happens again this weekend, because the trees that are still standing, maybe they became more susceptible to the next winds, though they're going to be less.
Rudy, thank you so much. All the best to all of you there.
Take care.
Take care.
You.
And Liz writes us as well, we live in a rural area in the West Kootenays, very used to power outages. Here are some tips. Have cash on hand. Know where your auxiliary lights are. Avoid opening your fridge or freezer. Be mindful of this. Have frozen meals like soup on hand. Thank you very much. And always have a simple way to make coffee. There you go. Thank you for that. Thank you for all of your calls as well, Darius. You're going to be busy for the next little while. I appreciate your time and your updates always.
Anytime.
CBC's climate and science specialist, Darius Madavi. It's 12:27 now. This is BC Today. Well, yesterday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau proposed a holiday from the GST, a temporary break on some goods, as well as a rebate check to workers who made $150,000 or less last year. And this, of course, comes ahead of the next federal election. We asked for your thoughts on this. Mark writes from Central Saanich, toys, liquor, and fast foods are not essentials. How much will it cost government to administer this pre-election Band-Aid? I feel sorry for the added responsibility that will be put on small businesses after their tax collection programs for the sake of a 2-month break. Governments need to reduce their own internal costs and debt. Clark writes, the GST was instituted to pay off the national debt. Well, that isn't where the funds went, just more government spending. Get rid of the GST and instead cut government spending to resolve the cash flow issue. George writes, we need real growth in the economy if we're going to drive down the cost of living. For my daughter who moved to the USA, they have inflation, but because the economy has real growth, prices are going back down. Joanne writes, the move reminds me of the old adage, government gives to Paul and takes from Peter. If the government wants to seriously make it affordable for Canadians who are working class and middle class, they need to reduce the personal tax so people have more money in their pockets. And Kieran writes from Victoria, this across-the-board payout is a complete waste of money. A $250 check means nothing to those making adequate salaries. Why should a person making $40,000 or less, essentially poverty, have to pay through their taxes to a person making 2 or 3 times as much? Thank you for all your emails. Again, our address is bctoday@cbc.ca. Make the season kind. That is the new name for our annual CBC fundraiser in support of the 108 food banks in this province. Now, the event is in support of fellow citizens like this.
My name is Ade, and I've been with the food bank for almost a year. I've been coming here since November last year, since I was pregnant with my girls. And yeah, I've been coming here because I'm low income, and then my support workers referred me to the Surrey Food Bank, and it's been a wonderful experience coming here. It's made a tremendous difference because since I had my girls in February, I've not had to buy formula for them. So that way we get to save some money. And financially, it's been like our backbone, which I really, really appreciate.
And is your husband working?
Yes, he is working. He does a remote job online with some companies from back home. So today I got some snacks, and I just pick what I need because it's quite a whole lot here. So I get fruits, I get shrimp, some seafood. So today I got diapers and formulas. Did I get diaper? No, I have to go back to ask my dad. Yeah. Okay, so usually I get diapers, formula, and lots of that from here.
Thank you, Ade, for sharing your story. Make the Season Kind is the new name for our annual campaign in support of food banks in BC. So you can circle this Friday, December the 6th on your calendar. we will have a full day of special programming planned to inspire you to donate to the food bank of your choice in British Columbia. Just go to the website cbc.ca/kindbc, and that's where you'll find the Donate Now button. You'll find a drop-down menu there if you click on it, so you can direct your donation to any of the 108 food banks in the province. Again, that is cbc.ca/kindbc. Click on the Donate Now button, and once you make your donation, you will receive a tax receipt within a few hours. It's 12:31 now. This is BC Today, and I'm Michelle Elliott. In just about a couple of minutes from now, I'll be joined by Brian Minter, and he'll take your gardening questions. That's coming up after the CBC News update with Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. As we've been hearing on the show, another powerful storm is sweeping through BC's coast today, bringing gusts up to 100 kilometers an hour in some areas. Environment Canada has issued more than a dozen special weather statements and wind warnings for Vancouver Island and the South Coast, but says gusts won't be as strong as those caused by the so-called bomb cyclone earlier this week. The RCMP are blaming a medical incident for a school bus crash near 100 Mile House last June that left one person dead and several others injured. Investigators say the female driver had a medical incident before the bus went off Highway 97 and down a steep embankment. More than 30 people were injured, including many students. A man in his 70s stopped to help and was struck by an SUV and killed. And a BC-based researcher says findings from a new study on whale strikes can help protect the animals. Chloe Robinson, who is the director of Whales for Oceanwise, says many strikes aren't reported. She also says measures to reduce strikes have only been implemented in less than 7% of high-risk areas. And in addition to the wind warnings, snowfall warnings are in effect for sections of Highway 3 and the Coquihalla. Taking a look at the rest of the forecast on the north coast, sunny this afternoon with a high of 5, highs to -15 and mainly cloudy in the Peace. In the central interior, cloudy with a high of -8, highs from -1 to +4 with rain and snow in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, wet snow and rain with a high of 3. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, rain this afternoon with strong winds and highs around 11. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob. Certainly gusty out there. I went out for a short walk.
A little unsettled.
Hold on to your hat. Thanks so much, Rob. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom, here with BC Today here on CBC. And lots more on today's top stories on the afternoon shows in your region. Coming up on In Metro Vancouver, here's what you'll hear on the Coast.
Michelle, hello there. Gloria Makarenko here, and I hope you can join us for On the Coast this afternoon. We've got some interesting guests. Local cartoonist and illustrator Zoe C. is a contributor to The New Yorker. She's been nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. You know, she almost never became an artist at all. She practiced law for years before switching careers. Now, Zoe has a local art show. It opens this weekend, so she is going to join us in studio to talk more about that. And you may have heard from Darius Madavi, our weather expert here at CBC Vancouver. He was pointing out this footage that's emerged of an octopus holding on during the swells of the bomb cyclone earlier this week. Now, normally, this octopus is being observed by Oceans Network Canada in about a meter of water. During the storm, it was more like 10 meters. So we're going to hear more about that on the show this afternoon between 3 and 6. Join us for On the Coast.
Gloria, thank you very much. That's Gloria Makarenko on the Coast coming up in Metro Vancouver. And you can listen on the radio or anywhere on the CBC News app and tune in as well for the afternoon shows on Vancouver Island, All Points West and Radio West in the interior. Zoe wrote us to say that her Canadian designed and made e-bike actually has a battery that sports a USB port. So during the last 12 hours in Parksville, she used it to keep her phone charged. Very smart, Zoe. Thank you for sharing that. It's 12:35 now. This is BC Today here on CBC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you as we all try to hunker down and stay dry and try to protect ourselves from this wind. I hope that you are all safe and that you are able to manage in a power outage should it happen to you this weekend. Well, we are joined now by our gardening columnist here on the show. Brian Minter is here to take your questions about all things gardening. You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And Brian joins me now from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack, where I know you were a little wet this morning, Brian.
Oh, yeah. Those are the CBC forecasted showers. I was want to verify that they were actually true. But anyway,
Yeah.
Michelle, let's move because of the weather outside. Let's move indoors for just a wee bit here.
Oh, yes.
And we did mention before that one of the really neat things that people love to do, it's very popular in Europe and over here as well, is to take special bulbs that are heat treated to be able to bloom indoors at this time of year. Now, we're talking about things like the beautiful Soleil d'Or. It's a
Lovely.
narcissus that has been treated to do well. And the Chinese sacred lily. Here's another one that is really spectacular in terms of coming along very, very nicely. Now, those, along with hyacinths, have to be treated in a special way. And that's why I'm so glad we had this moment here. And number one is if you put them in a glass vase so you can see the roots go down into you put some stones below, and always keep the roots and the stones separated by an inch or so, so they don't, water doesn't rot the bottom of the bulb. They'll come up and be really ugly and really horrible because what you have to do is keep them cool. That is a secret on especially heat-treated bulbs you want to bring into bloom a little bit earlier. They want to get the roots forming first of all. So what you put them outside in a cool spot. I mean, some people, hey, I'll put them in the fridge. That'll work too. But what has to happen? The roots need to form first of all and go into the water. And then you'll see emerging the leaves just a wee bit. But when the flower stem, you can see it coming out of the bulb. Then you take it, put it in a window to be able to enjoy for weeks as it comes up and comes into bloom. And by the way, they have a beautiful perfume as well, which is so nice to have. Not expensive. You can do this over and over again. But seniors who can't get out much, or even children, like to see this developing. It's a real fun thing. The other thing that's now available in garden stores across the province are the beautiful amaryllis. Now, these are mostly grown in Brazil now. We're getting smaller bulbs, the more flowers, which is really great. So this is a traditional one. You simply put it in a pot. About a third of the bulb should be sitting above the ground. That's really, really important. Because you want the bulb, you enjoy the beauty of the bulb, but the roots will go in. But this is what's taking place right now. And when I was over there 4 years ago, we talked about it. These are waxed amaryllis. In other words, they're taken beautiful patterns. They got all kinds of designs on them, which are kind of cool and kind of nice, which is great. Many different colors. You can see them over here as well with the beautiful bronze and beautiful coating.
Wow.
So they look attractive. The bulb looks attractive. And then the flowers come slowly. And again, the cooler you can keep them, the slower they'll come. But Michelle, you're going to get, 4 or 5 size inch blossoms across to be able to enjoy over and over again. I know many people who start them and then before it comes into bloom, start another one. You get this sequence with a beautiful color. And in Europe, they are more popular than poinsettias. It's really become a thing. So they're available in garden stores across the province right now. But to have things like that in bloom, inexpensively, making a beautiful display, and treated carefully, and we'll talk about that next year, is they will come back and bloom again for you in subsequent years, which is
How
kind of a
cool.
cool thing. So yeah, it is really.
Yeah, and I bet they make great presents too, like poinsettias.
They do. Yeah. Yeah, you bet.
Brian is joining us now. I love that. I love the colors that you were showing as well. I was imagining them inside my home, and wow, how much would I enjoy that inside? Brian Minter is with me taking your gardening questions, our longtime gardening columnist here on the program. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or you can hit pound 690 on your mobile device. You can email us too, bctoday@cbc.ca. Let's take our first call now, and Brad is calling from Lillooet. Hello there, Brad.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Brad.
I called before. The question is about fruit tree pruning, specifically crab apples and apples and cherries, and the debate about the best time of year to do it.
Okay, Brad, really good question because many people are thinking the same thing. In the Okanagan, for example, in the outer reaches of the Okanagan where they had serious trouble last year, it had nothing to do with the pruning, But when the leaves are off the tree, usually about mid-November, until they start to begin to show signs of the buds opening up in March, that's your window for pruning. Anytime between, the leaf fall in November to about the end of January, end of February, in that period, depending where you live. And I guess the only consideration is, and it's not been a problem, Brad, when you do prune, is the open cut more susceptible to frost going in. With fruit trees, not so much. That's an issue. So essentially, if you feel comfortable, anytime in that period, a lot of people wait till it warms up. It's a little nicer at the end of winter rather than the beginning of winter to prune it. But that's your entire window for the pruning.
Does that settle it for you?
No. What's that?
Go ahead, Brad.
Oh, yeah, sorry. And on that point, hard prunes, do they cause the tree to come back more vigorously the following year and put up more growth, or does that depend on the type of tree?
Yeah, Brad, brilliant question, because the idea of pruning is to create more branches that will produce more flower buds, and that will give you more fruit. With your pears and apples and plums, the idea is to take out the center of the tree and have the branches radiate out in a vase form, allowing more air, more sunlight to get in, and more development of the spurs and buds. With cherry trees, you do central leader pruning. They have a very strong central leader. You basically keep cutting that back each year and bringing out the branches in that particular way. But it's all about getting more branches ready to accommodate more spurs and more flowers.
There you
and
go.
Subsequently fruit. Yep. Thank you, Brad.
Brad, thank you very much. And again, the stuff people are thinking about right now. When is the exact right time? Patricia is our next caller now. Let's head to Comox. Hi, Patricia. Welcome.
Hello. Hi,
Patricia.
Hi. Yeah, so I have a question about the best time to move a rhododendron that we have. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet, and just wondering when's the best time to move that.
Well, in Comox, you are a Zone 7 plant area, and I would say that if you can do it now, it would be a great time to do that. Yeah, the winter was severe last year, but if it's a rhodo hardy for our area, I would make sure a couple of things. Tie the rhodo up, first of all, with string, get it fairly tight so you can see the size of the root ball. Remember, the roots are shallow, and get a big enough root system. And I always put fine bark in the planting hole because it draws the roots out the rhodo when you do that in your new location, and keep it the same depth. But I feel very comfortable if it's a hardier variety, doing it right now. If it's one of the more tender varieties, we call them the H3s and so on, and maybe wait till the end of February, early part of March. But for the most part, when you get them planted, the roots start forming immediately, and the plant's well established to give you a better show next spring.
And then what about the buds on it now? Like, should we cut it back at all, or just?
Oh, no. Rhodos are incredibly resilient. Thousands and thousands are dug down in Oregon and fields down there. They're all dug with buds on them. And over the years, we've never seen, as long as they've kept moist and so on, the buds will still open next spring, though they're already formed, ready to, make that beautiful display. So, nope, I think you're great. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks, Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia. Nice and hardy, ready to go. That rhododendron. Thank you for your question. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 to get your question in for Brian Minter. Let's go to Lauren waiting at Roberts Creek. Hello, Lauren.
Oh, hi there. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm calling because this year, compared to last year, I've had lackluster fall colors, in particular with my witch hazel, Virginia creeper, Boston ivy, and Chinese dogwood. Last year they went from yellow, orange to brilliant reds. This year, no brilliant reds. Just wondering if there's any kind of explanation for that.
Yeah, let's just broaden that out and say weather. You bring up a very good point.
One
Lauren.
word.
Yeah. Lauren, the one thing that really improves the color is having a very well-drained soil around the plants, the shade trees like the red maples and so on. If they're sitting in well-drained soil, they tend to have more brilliant fall color. If they're in wet, heavy soil, they tend not to do as well. So for all plants that have color, well-drained soils, that they dry out quickly and they'll make that beautiful display. Now, we've had a beautiful fall. There've been, we started to get rain, which we were missing early in the season. It came back. And I think the extra moisture might have made a difference in terms of not the same color. But when they get under stress and the fall color becomes more intense, and so that's really, but it's a weather-related issue. And no, again, each year is slightly different. But I noticed the yellow that we do get in our local mountains and so on was pretty good this year. The color was good. So it's weather-related, it's moisture-related, and it's well-drained soil-related. Those are the key things, Lauren, that make a difference in terms of our wonderful fall color.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the call, Lauren. Good luck next year. Thank you. Barb is next in Richmond now. Hi, Barb. What's your question for Brian Minter?
Oh, hi there. Yes, I have an allotment plot in Richmond, and we're cleaning it up for the winter. They tell us they want us to remove weeds, but I'm thinking, why can't I just leave the weeds that are growing and use them as a cover crop and turn them over in the spring? If they're healthy, they're taking nutrients out of the soil. It seems crazy to not use it.
Okay, Barb, you're bringing up a point now. Everything we do, there's an opposite side to the story,
right.
And I agree with you. The one thing we've learning, and the whole world now is moving to regenerative gardening, and one of the rules of regenerative gardening is never, ever, ever leave your soil bare. If you're harvesting crops, leave a bit on in the fall and so on, or get those crops winter color of grass and so on, rye grass, buckwheat, all that sort of stuff growing over the winter. It protects the soil. So I agree with you. I would say at this point, leave the weeds there, and having it look nice and pretty and so on is one issue. But the reality is keeping the soil covered. And weeds are just like any other plant. They open up the soil, protect the soil. And no, I think you're right on. Absolutely.
Well, that's what I thought. It just didn't seem logical.
Yeah.
I mean, I did plant a cover crop last year, but none of it germinated. So
Yeah.
I thought, well, why not just leave the weeds? Because I know they're growing.
Okay. I agree with you. By the way, on cover crops, a lot of them have a very short lifespan. If it's old seed, it doesn't germinate well, just so you know. Always keep that in mind. But I love what you're doing. And again, don't let the weeds develop seeds. That's the only thing. Okay. Prune out the weed seeds. Otherwise, you're good to go. Okay.
Super, because I also find they keep the horsetail in check.
Yeah. To some degree, Barb, you betcha.
So bad.
Well, Barb, it sounds you're on the right track there. Thank you. That's
Thanks, Barb.
Barb in Richmond. Let's head to Fort Langley, and Virginia is calling. Hi, Virginia. Go ahead. What's your question for Brian Minter?
Hi. I've been waiting to dig out, to lift, I guess you're supposed to say, the dahlia tubers until there was a frost. But I don't know if there's ever going to be a frost, and the blighters are still putting out buds. So I'm afraid I'm going to be digging them up in the snow. Is it okay to go ahead and take them out now, or would they be stronger if I waited?
No, Virginia, again, a great question. We get to the point, it's usually late October, early November, we'll get that first light frost. We're just not getting that this year. And so, no, it's time to get them out. What I worry about is the soil staying awfully wet, starting a bit of rot on our canna lilies and our dahlias and so on. So lift them out as soon as you possibly can right now. Cut them off, let them out. And a couple of things. Number one is don't wash them off. When you do lift them up, try and shake off as much excess soil and so on, get them reasonably clean, and then get them dry. The key is not to let them stay wet. Sometimes good old-fashioned sulfur powder on will help dry them out a wee bit, and just keep them from frost. I don't think if you got that cool spot that doesn't freeze, that doesn't get too warm, and if you want to put a little fan there until the bulbs are completely dry, that's their happy place. And you don't have to cover them with peat moss or bulk or bark mulch or anything. Just simply let them dry and keep them cool, and I think they'll overwinter far better that way.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Virginia.
Okay, Virginia, thank you.
Want to keep them in their happy place. Virginia, thank you for the call about your dahlia tubers. We actually have another overwintering question by email here, Brian. Trevor is wondering, could you please tell me how to overwinter and protect my arugula patch, 4 foot by 4 foot, in my south-facing garden? I would like to extend the harvesting season if possible.
Yeah, and Trevor, thank you for that, because it's really important that we have more of our food
Absolutely.
crops in the wintertime. There's winter lettuce, the winter density, and corn salad and so on. Winter, broccoli and beets and so on. It's a whole thing. We talked about back in August that we should be doing this. So arugula is pretty hardy. It's not one of the super hardy ones, but just keep it growing right now. Ideal conditions right at the moment. But if we do get a danger of frost coming in, 2 things I would do. I would mulch around. You could use fir, hemlock, sawdust, or bark just around the outside to protect the plants a wee bit. But the big one is getting that product called Ensilate. The remake cloth we use in the spring to keep insects and so on off our plants isn't going to be weather tolerant enough. The Ensilate, which is very inexpensive, makes a 10 degrees Celsius difference. So if we get that impending cold, simply mulch a little bit around and put the Ensilate over top, the Ensilate, and that will protect them, up to -10 anyway. And of course, that's all you're probably going to need in your area. So no, that's what I would do. And I would go and get your Ensilate early, so when it does get cold, you've got it ready to, put on right away.
Oh, you can extend your arugula into the winter. Trevor, thank you very much for that. Yummy salads. Brian is our next caller now in Victoria. Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Hi there. Hi. Thank you for doing that,
Sure.
Brian, and helping all of us who have no idea what we're doing.
Okay. I'm in that class.
So you and me.
I live by the ocean, and I have this beautiful rock wall that has 6 beautiful heathers that are 20-plus years old, and they spill over and they look beautiful. But for the first time ever, I have this dead spot in one of them where they've just created this, bunch of dead stalks.
Yep.
And it's never happened before. And I'm just curious, is it something to do with the weather, or is it...
Yeah, I have a suspicion. So many heathers were damaged severely with the intense and the fast cold that we got last year. And it happened in so many places. I'm going to mention this to everybody because I think we should be considering planting winter heather this year, but make sure you use the Erica carnea varieties. Those are the hardiest varieties of heather, as opposed to the Erica darliensis, which are the more tender varieties. So that's number one. It's hard. Okay, so we are right now, and by the way, the salt spray, I remember along the banks of UBC for so many years, facing the west, they had heathers there for years and years, so they will tolerate the salt spray, though that's not an issue. But I would say when we get our new growth starting next spring, just maybe cut out a bit of the dead bits and whatnot, and just watch and see, because heather are notorious for not putting out new growth out of old hard wood. So perhaps when the flowers are finished, new growth begins, a light pruning on some of that new growth to see if we can get some regenerative happening, some of the smaller branches around to get those spots filled in.
So should that be in the spring then?
Yeah, always prune when the new growth is beginning, and you can see lots of lush happening around there. So we'll prune carefully, try and get those spots filled in. Otherwise, I think we may have to put the odd heather into of newer varieties of the hardier Erica carnea to make sure we've got the sequence of color coming year after year.
So what would have caused that? Is there something that you can think of that would have caused it, or is it just? I mean, they're very, very healthy plants, so I just don't know.
Yeah, no, I think the intensity of the cold last winter that did so much damage to virtually everybody, even the Gulf Islands out there, Brian. So at this point here, let's see if we can get some recovery next spring.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, thank you. Good luck. Great question. Lawrence is next in New Westminster with a question for Master Gardener Brian Minter. Hi, Lawrence.
Hi, and hi, Brian. You've helped me out a lot in the past.
Well, thank you. Good to hear.
Well, you do. One thing, I had the neighbor's crabgrass decided like my lawn a little bit better. So how do I pulverize that into oblivion? I was told crabgrass naturally dies off in the fall, but I just want to make sure, I get rid of it and maybe resod in the spring? And the second question, best time to prune my grapevines, which you advised me to buy a couple of years ago.
Yeah, grapevines, as soon as the leaves are off and dormant, you're okay to prune them. I always watch our local growers in the valley, and when they do the pruning, they generally do it a little bit later, in late winter rather than early winter. But as we always say, in the Okanagan, we've had so many problems this year. There's so many grapes, they just have to get it done when they can get it done, because that's a good question. So, when they're dormant, sometime. The other question, crabgrass is a pain in the neck. Let me tell you, because
my neck is a little further south.
Okay. Fine. Okay. But in any case, the problem with crabgrass is there is no control. There's no, in garden stores or anywhere, there's no control for crabgrass. It was taken off the market. And you always had to use a pre-emergent for crabgrass back in those days. The only way you can deal with it is it doesn't, and you're right, it doesn't come up until June and July. When people come in April, I've got crabgrass, and I say, not yet. It's something else we've got there. So it's a latecomer. But the secret is to prevent it from seeding, because it is an annual type of grass. Once the seed's in the ground, it's going to come up. So just prevent it from seeding, mow low, dig them out when you see them coming up, because they're pretty evident in terms of how they grow. But the bottom line is prevent it from seeding. And I've done that. And my gosh, it's like it didn't come up again because there wasn't any seed to spit out. But it's a nasty seed spitter. It just goes everywhere. So that's really the thing to watch, Lawrence.
If I get all that garbage out, when would be prime time for putting sod in? I know for me it's at least September.
When would it be? Yeah, next spring maybe, or?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see 8 to 10 degree temperatures before I start putting sod down consistently, and which is really going to be sometime in April. That's going to be about the earliest. And of course, the only problem is all the seeds are there now. So even though you rotivate it up, it's going to be there. But if you've got a sod covering, that's a pretty good deterrent for it. To come up through the sod is going to be tough for those little seeds. So yeah, I would say probably April, a good time to take a look at that, Lawrence.
There
Absolutely.
you go, Lawrence. Fair to say the crabgrass making people crabby? Yeah,
pretty much.
Okay, Brian, and we're going to see you in a couple of weeks for Make the Season Kind, our special program on Friday, December 6th.
Oh, 2 weeks today. Absolutely. So look forward to it. It's such an important thing for the province, and really thank CBC for doing that every year. So we'll see you. And you do such a great job hosting that too, Michelle. But anyway, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Looking forward to seeing you, Brian. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Brian Minter, BC Today's gardening columnist. Yes, he'll be with us for our special Make the Season Kind show on December 6th.